Good morning, all. I apologize. I'm going to work out this microphone. My name is State Senator Anthony Hardy Williams, and I welcome you to the great debate on the potential or possibility of legalizing marijuana in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a sitting senator for over 14-odd years and a few terms. I'm the Democratic whip. And further, I'm a kid out of West Philadelphia who historically, politically, and personally have been against legalizing marijuana in any form. In the last 8 months, I've changed my position on medical marijuana. A lot of information research came to me about that. So cannabis that is non-toxic and provides medicinal benefits to children and adults for a variety of medical issues, I've decided that I'm supportive of it. That bill, as we speak, is frankly rapidly moving towards the governor's desk. It has momentum on both sides of the aisle, Democrat and Republican, conservative, and what you would describe, I guess, as liberal, are now avowed to supporting that particular piece of legislation. After that, I began to have conversations with others, frankly, out of one reason, about the possibility of legalizing recreational marijuana. And let me make very clear for the record, for anybody who's recording, chirping, or tweeting, I have not arrived at the position that I'm going to be okay with legalizing marijuana. But I think that it is very important that we have the conversation about it for a number of reasons. Pennsylvania has about a $1.2 billion deficit this year. We're talking about revenue enhancements, which means taxes. Consistently, the most unpopular taxes are property taxes and income taxes. And those would generate the most money, so we have to look to other alternatives which generate similar amounts of money. This category, Colorado and I think Washington, haven't opened up the conversation in that regard, because Colorado in particular is seeing significant revenue increases because they have legalized the process. They've also seen significant decline in areas of crime that were associated with illegal drug trade. And so for those reasons, at a minimum, a person like me has to stop via common sense and say, while I may have started here, I'm allowed to grow and evolve to here, which I've done on a number of my public policies over the years. So that's nothing new for me. What is new is that the information is beginning to, the data on who supports and who doesn't support recreational marijuana usage has changed and evolved dramatically within a 3 to 2 year period of time. That being, when you poll people who historically have said they're opposed to it, they are much more open. And more people are confessing who you would not expect to be involved in that process. Jokes like this, like everybody said, bring a brownie to this event today. We don't have samples, so you won't need your brownie. People who make those jokes all the time don't know that I've talked to seniors who use marijuana. I've talked to professionals who are in very, very sensitive careers who use marijuana on a recreational basis, as well as the stereotypical marijuana user are a part of that conversation. That said, that's a lot of revenue that Pennsylvania potentially could extract. As a matter of fact, I think there was a number that was kind of shocking. Harvard economist Jeffrey Myron, I guess he projected about $119 million per year in lost revenue. The second, and probably equally significant issue, is that criminalizing the usage and distribution of marijuana has put a huge population of young people in jail, and in particular young people of color, African Americans specifically. And if you basically say, well, they did the crime, pay the time, I don't think we can afford to continue to pay for this generation who is now trotted off to prison for selling a relatively small amount of marijuana and risking their lives, because it costs us more money to prosecute them, keep them in jail, than it would be to citate them and put them in some kind of drug rehab activity or, frankly, job training, which would teach them a different career. It is tremendously expensive. When you have the sheriff of Philadelphia who will quote almost $30,000 before you get to trial with those individuals that may or may not be found guilty. So as well as the obvious. Somebody 17, 18, 14, 15, 20 years old, I don't know about you, but I sure as heck made a lot of mistakes during that period of time in my life. Thank God none of them prevented me from allowing to have a career or hold public office. These infractions, nonviolent infractions, are causing them not only to be housed in a penal system, but that record is following them when they decide to change their lives and get straightened up and protect their families. And they're having a difficult time finding employment. So for those obvious things, we are beginning the conversation, or what we describe as the great debate today. And I'm very excited about the panels, and I'm certainly excited about the attendance and participation by yourselves. Let me go over a few housekeeping items before we proceed. One, we'd appreciate if you would turn off your cell phones, and if you don't turn them all the way off, we'd appreciate them being on vibrate during the course of it. I personally don't have a problem with them being on vibrate or taking pictures. What I would have a problem with them ringing and you talking on the phone. So if you're going to talk on the phone, I appreciate you getting up and walking out or taking the phone call outside. In your packet, you have a question card, and I think it looks like this. As we proceed through panel 1 and panel 2, we'd appreciate you writing your questions on the card and passing the card to staff members. Where are the staff members? Okay, so there's one staff member, but other staff members are going to be positioned other places. There's 3 staff members. It'll be positioned, I'm assuming, here and on the other side, so that after you complete your questions with cards, you can pass them down and they will have the questions reviewed. As we go through, and please, I will briefly go through the panelists, but there's a program which you have. It gives you the timeline of our program today and who will be involved. I encourage you, after this is over, there will be an online process to continue the conversation, and we will continue that as we proceed forward. To our first panel of guests. One panelist is running a little bit behind, but he will be here shortly. Bishop J. Darrell Robinson. Yes, I can't pronounce it. Yeshua Ministries. Bishop Robinson is the founder and leader of the Yeshua Ministries Worship Center, a holistic faith institution which has a prison ministry, food bank, a youth ministry, and other community-related services. Bishop Robinson earned his Bachelor of Theology degree from the National Theology Seminary and College in Baltimore, Maryland. He received an honorary doctorate of divinity from the Springfield Christian College Graduate School in 2000. And he serves on the steering committee of the Philadelphia Interdenominational Council of Pastors and was one of 7 pastors to conference with President George Bush regarding the National Faith-Based Initiative. George Forsyth, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, LEAP. And there you go, raise that hand, smile. Okay, there you go. Mr. Forsyth served with the Maryland State Police for 26 years, most of which he spent in covert narcotics operations. He has worked drug cases from the street level up, written and executed federal and state search and seizure warrants, and participated in countless drug arrests. Having come to the conclusion that drugs are a public health issue rather than one of criminal justice, George has committed himself to helping people with substance abuse problems and is in the process of completing a bachelor's degree in human services addictions at Catholic University. Captain Tom Davidson, Philadelphia Police Department. There. Captain Davidson entered the Philadelphia Police Department in 1986 and has served as the captain of the Narcotics Field Division. His lengthy past experience includes service as an officer in the 39th District, a detective in the East Detective Division, a sergeant in the 25th Division, a lieutenant in the 17th and 18th Division, a captain of Command Inspections Bureau for the 1st and 24th District, and an officer in the Major Crimes Unit. Derek Rosenwig. How do you pronounce it? Rosenswag. That's not really close, but I thank you, appreciate it. Rosenswag. Philadelphia Normal. Mr. Rosenswag served on the board of the Philadelphia chapter of the National Organization of the Reform of Marijuana Laws from 2006 to 2012, and currently works full-time as an application developer, a graduate of Drexel University, and has been a vocal active proponent of marijuana legalization. With that, I introduce you to the panel. Let's give them a round of applause. As we proceed through the panel conversation, we're going to open with opening comments, and then we're going to begin to have a few questions from me and then to the public. What I'd ask is that your opening comments be concise, direct, and to the point. If I have to raise the brownie, I'm going to hit you with it. So be concise and to the point in your commentary, and then we will begin our process. And so to Derek.
Let's see. Guess this thing's on. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Before I begin, I just want to thank Senator Williams and the staff for putting together this event and bringing the discussion to the forefront. Had kind of a lengthy little presentation here. How do I go to the next slide on this? Right, okay. So growing up, I thought, like many others, what programs like DARE had taught me to believe, that marijuana is a dangerous, addictive drug that makes you go insane, that makes you steal your friends' belongings to sell them so you can buy more. Then one day, while in college, I had the opportunity to try marijuana myself. And I came to learn that what I'd been... I came to learn that what I had been taught was, completely untrue. Curious about how this dissonance came to be, I began researching as much as I could using the internet and the library at my university. And I learned that not only was the prohibition of marijuana started for completely the wrong reasons, but that marijuana is an immensely useful medicine and indispensable industrial agent. More importantly, I saw the devastating effect of a policy doomed to failure, one that our country seems to want to repeat ad nauseum, one substance after another. And that policy is prohibition. Now, whether you believe people should use marijuana, people are going to. The right to self-determination is the heart of our culture, and no government can tell someone what they can and cannot put in their own body. We make these choices every day when it comes to alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine. We choose between cooking healthy food or eating obesity-inducing fast food. And for the vast majority of people, using these substances is done occasionally and in a responsible way. And unlike alcohol, marijuana does not inhibit your ability to make rational decisions. It doesn't make you violent. It doesn't make you wild and out of control. Unlike tobacco, it's not addictive and doesn't cause cancer. Now, people are quite capable of using it in a responsible manner, as evidenced by the lack of rampaging stoners on January 1st when Colorado opened its first recreational cannabis shops. The key is education, through which the true dangers of drugs like alcohol and tobacco have been thoroughly addressed. As the incredible library of research around marijuana continues to grow, so too will its benefits and potential dangers be accurately teased out through scientific and medical research. The truth is, marijuana prohibition was sold to Americans as a moral imperative and something that would produce what would at that time be considered positive results in society. These results including success in preventing people from wanting to use marijuana, being able to get it, or being able to sell it. The problem is that prohibition was grounded in nothing but racism and rampant greed, and it has failed consistently in everything except providing opportunities to disproportionately and negatively affect minorities. That problem particularly affects Philadelphia, as numerous individuals and groups, including the ACLU of Pennsylvania, as well as myself and Chris Goldstein from Philly Normal, recently testified to at Councilman Jim Kenney's hearings on decriminalization. From at least 2009, this racial disparity has existed, with African Americans consisting of about 82% of all arrests for marijuana possession, as you can see by the chart. This is consistent year after year. That's about 5.4 times rate of arrests compared to Caucasians. That's not even close to an isolated incident. And in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia is the only county where you see this kind of disparity. And interestingly enough, marijuana possession is also the only crime for which you see this disparity. Since marijuana prohibition began, demand has gone up, supply has skyrocketed, and misinformation abounds. Literally anyone can get marijuana almost anywhere in the U.S. High school students consistently report having significantly easier access to marijuana than alcohol, and it makes sense. Gangs and cartels have a vested interest in having young people push drugs, including marijuana, and they'll do it in schools and on playgrounds. They generally don't care how old you are, and they don't ask for ID. Yet in states where medical marijuana has been legalized, we've seen rates of teen use decline consistently. While it's relatively expensive, marijuana is worth its weight in gold. It's nowhere close to prohibitively so. Whether it's a street dealer selling on behalf of a gang or cartel, a college student selling some on the side to help pay his way through school, or the neighbor you'd least expect who has a small indoor grow room, people want, get, and use marijuana constantly. Attempting to ban its cultivation or sale has been an exercise in futility. Seeds and clones are easy to get, and it is incredibly easy to grow. Numerous books and online resources exist which provide expert advice on how to do it for the best possible results. The U.S. government estimates that approximately 20.2% of Americans, about 65 million, use marijuana in a given year. Almost half have tried it at least once in their lives. The marijuana market is a fundamental truth of life in Pennsylvania and the United States, and denying that is like denying the sun is bright. Now, perhaps the only area besides the racial disparity that prohibition has had any success with.
Derek, you have about 40 more seconds.
Oh, okay.
It's 5 minutes intros.
Is medical marijuana. This is particularly important to people like myself. My father was diagnosed with a condition in 2003 known as reflex sympathetic dystrophy. It's a neuropathic pain condition which affects the nervous system, and marijuana has been shown to have significant. It can help it significantly. It can reduce pain and anguish, and for patients like my dad and others in the state, it's imperative that this be legalized for them at the very least. I had a few more slides here, but I'll skip through. So as you can see, the penalties for marijuana in Pennsylvania are pretty severe. Between, for simple possession for up to 30 grams, you can be sent to jail for 30 days or have to pay a $500 fine. Over 30 grams carries a 1-year incarceration or $5,000 fine. The penalties far outweigh the crime.
So I apologize. I'm going to have to cut you off.
Okay.
And during the course of back and forth, I'm sure you're going to be able to refer to your presentation. Thank you very much. To our next, you can clap. I think I know where most of the audience stands on this stuff. So anyway, so the next person is Captain. 5 minutes.
Tom Davidson. One. Captain Tom Davidson. I'm completely opposed to the legalization of marijuana for several reasons. We use this term, it's a gateway drug. It's been used for years. And although I don't believe that every person who smokes marijuana is going to become a hardened abuser of what's considered more serious drugs, I do believe that there's a lot of people who tread that line. And once something is said to be legalized, it can lead to bigger things. And that's the group that I would think is at risk and would be the increased users in our population. The other part of this, especially with our youth, as they are faced with a lot of peer pressure when they're less confident and less established like older folks as ourselves. That, and another facet, reason why I'm opposed to it is the reason of impairment. I've been in police work for a long time, and I've seen the carnage and wreckage and death and despair of a lot of crimes and a lot of impairment on the roads, violent crime. And you're not going to tell me that it's not related to a lot of drug use. And that's all across the board, from alcohol, as was mentioned, all the way up to the harder drugs and everything in between. And on a side note to that, it was mentioned about professionals using it. I don't think I would want someone who's going to be performing open heart surgery on Monday, having confidence in that person if they've been smoking marijuana all weekend. The person who's operating a school bus full of children, I don't feel comfortable having known that they smoked marijuana at their lunch break. And it brings me to the permissive attitudes of this. Like I said, a lot of people tread that fine line, and a lot of reasons why they don't use is because it is illegal. And once you pass laws to legalize, it creates that air of permissiveness where the increased users and impairment. The last thing we need in our society is further impairment in in public. If you're going to say that marijuana users are the type that stay at home and like we've all viewed them to be and you know, nonviolent and everything, well, that's okay. But the reality of it is impairment causes death and destruction that I see in real life. And that starts with, doesn't start with, but it's including in driving under the influence. I reached out to somebody yesterday in the Accident Investigation Division, and in cases of impairment where there's blood tests being performed, he threw a figure out there where at least when the results come back, which usually takes about 30 days, about half, he said his terms were at least half, were also under the influence of some form of drugs. So for those reasons, I strongly oppose any form of legalization. As a matter of fact, I think we should be moving in the other direction as far as making the laws a little stronger. But that's where I stand on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Forsythe.
Can you hear me? Hi. As I was introduced, George Forsythe. There was one mistake in the bio. I'm not a current Catholic University student. I was going through a counseling program there. My goal is to go there, but I'm still finishing up community college right now, towards being a drug counselor. But I didn't want to put anything in there that wasn't true. As my bio said, I'm a retired Maryland State Trooper. I did 26 years. Out of my 26 years, 23 was probably undercover. I stayed on the street till the end when I finished up my career in a fugitive team in Baltimore City. I was on a DEA task force, all Baltimore City and the surrounding counties. I worked every aspect of drug investigations, from wiretaps, written federal search warrants, served them, state search warrants, and everything else. I'm also a proud member of an organization called Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. I have cards and pamphlets for anybody who would like to have that later on. Towards the end of my career, I hit 50. I know you guys are shocked by looking at me, but I hit 50 this year in May. But the last couple of years before I retired, I started getting a little more retrospective as to what I was doing. Some of it was a spiritual change for me. Some of it was some personal issues that family members were going through, and some of it was just what I was seeing. And I got more retrospective. I started seeing what exactly are we doing? My whole career was the drug war. That was my whole career. If there's any aspect of drugs, I've done it. Enforcing it, I haven't done them. Better be careful. I see all these cameras here. But I started questioning even just the terminology. We use terms like war on drugs, and that terminology just stopped making sense to me. A drug is a substance. That's like saying I'm declaring war on water bottles or tables or chairs. From my experience working what I did, and I think there's areas of Philadelphia that are pretty similar to Baltimore. We've got a pretty similar communities, blue collar. We got the same problems in Baltimore I think you guys would have here. And I started seeing the war on drugs as mostly a war on people. And what I saw was mostly poor people. That's who's really paying the price. We use terminology when we discuss the war on drugs, terminology like he's on the front line of the war on drugs, or that officer's in the trenches of the war on drugs, or man, that neighborhood, the east side's a war zone right now. That's what we say. What I came to the conclusion, and no disrespect to the captain and his career, but we came to maybe some different conclusions. I came to the conclusion that our war on drugs was creating more problems than the drugs themselves. I came to the conclusion that a war zone or a front line, the problem with that is the front line could be the alley behind my house. And I lived in row homes. It could be the alley behind my house. The front line could be my front yard. And we call neighborhoods war zones, and we expect the people to live in them to act like they're not living in an occupied country. We're calling them a war zone. Our position at LEAP, and my position is all the drug use and addiction, and you can't address addiction, you can't address poverty without talking about addiction. You can't address addiction if the answer is let's just lock them up, get them out of here so we don't have to see them. There's got to be a better way. It's a mental health issue. Let's put it there. Officers like Captain Davidson and his force, they can spend more time investigating rapists, murderers. It's a waste of time. We're here talking about marijuana, so I'll focus on that. A marijuana arrest for a street officer, let me tell you, again, we may disagree, is a complete waste of time. Yeah. You take an officer off the street, he has to do a property held, a chain of custody. Sometimes there's another witness. Then there's a court date. We know how that goes, anybody in the criminal justice system. The first court date is either FTA because he didn't show up and you got to come again. Maybe the officer's on overtime. Maybe there's another officer who was there who saw it and he's a witness, he has to be there. But the first time is, Your Honor, I'm sorry, I don't have a lawyer. Can I get a continuance? Can I get a jury trial if I can't get an interest? Then the officer's coming back. So on the one side, you're having the money that's being spent on law enforcement taking an officer off the street where he could be investigating something more serious. Because we all know if I took a rapist off in your neighborhood, the rape stopped. If I take the guy off the corner, there's another guy on the corner there within an hour. That's just the reality of it, especially if you're working in a close-knit urban environment where there's street-level dealers and open markets and shops, like we call them in Baltimore, heroin shops. Our position at LEAP, and my position, is you tax it and regulate it. You legalize it. I'm not smoking marijuana. I have no desire to smoke marijuana. The very attractive young lady there is my daughter here from college. Put your hand up, Kate. Coming to visit me for the summer. She does not smoke marijuana. My other 6 kids do not smoke marijuana. I would not. My personal opinion is I wouldn't. But the bottom line is if somebody wants to, from a law enforcement perspective, we're not seeing any trouble. From a law enforcement perspective, I have never seen a tavern brawl of marijuana brawlers out front. I've never seen a guy come home from work, he's stoned on marijuana, so he's going to smack his wife. I was a hostage negotiator for 15 years and a team leader, and at times the overall commander of the Maryland State Police hostage negotiation team. I've never negotiated with a person who's strung out on marijuana and he's on the roof naked saying he could fly or anything else. I've never even seen a marijuana overdose. Now, I've heard about marijuana.
Mr. Forsythe, I apologize. You have no more time, so I have to.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry.